The gaming industry is a weird place lately, and that's putting it lightly. Companies are now censoring platforms even further, which is never a good sign. And everything's pretty much a mess, but it also ties directly into another major problem, which is that younger generations of gamers are simply just not buying games like older generations used to. It seems like younger generations have completely opted out of buying new games, or really any games at all. This comes from Vice. As you can see, things have gotten weird really fast. So, what's going on? Well, the younger generations, like Gen Zers, are flat out cutting back on everything, not just video games, I mean everything. This all originated actually from a Wall Street Journal article that you're seeing on screen here, and younger Americans especially are cutting back on literally everything. I mean from going out, buying coffee outside, and especially purchasing brand new video games. People ages 18 to 24 have already, according to the Wall Street Journal, have cut their online purchases by around 13% this year alone. That's a massive cutback in profits for companies, but in terms of video games, it's actually even worse. The amount of games being bought by Gen Zers has dropped a staggering 25% from 2024 alone. In fact, when compared overall, video games are getting beaten into the dirt lately. Mostly it's around 5% less being bought by other generations. I mean like millennials and then some, but Gen Zers are way less interested in video games it seems, and why is that? According to one report they referenced, it was concluded that contributing factors to drop spending included a difficult job market, student loans, and a particularly high credit card delinquency rate among those aged 18 to 29, as they further state here. This group is struggling more than older cohorts since younger consumers are not only spending less today, but also probably saving less. That could dent their ability to build wealth in the future. As Matt Piscatella, he's a games analyst, by the way, if you don't know, he showed this via Blue Sky. As you can see, it's all down sharply in his own words. They're just not buying games at all. So what gives? I mean, how can you even fix something like this? Looking at this handy dandy graph, the longer the line, the bigger percentage of people that are cutting back on that particular hobby or lifestyle choice. As you can see, makeup is least affected, yet video games are cratering badly. I guess Gen Zers still like their Sephoras, but buying the latest video games is pretty much pointless to them these days. And honestly, I don't blame them somewhat, because games really are expensive. Like recently, I played Mafia: The Old Country. I 100%ed the game. It was pretty annoying to do, but I did it anyways. The game was $65 Canadian at release. The game's story, which is all the content that it has pretty much, took me maybe 10 or 11 hours in total to complete. After that, I just drove around, got all the collectibles, which was a few more hours of gameplay, and then I was done with the game. I honestly felt like I got ripped off for what I paid for. There just wasn't enough game to justify the price that I paid for it. I mean, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 was a $50 game at release, and I got about 100 hours out of that game, and it felt like money well spent. And currently, of this video being made anyways, it's been about a week since Mafia: The Old Country released. And as seen here, Old Country sold around 800,000 copies in its opening few days, which is not terrible, but not great either. The previous Mafia game, Mafia 3, sold over 4 million units in a single week for comparison. Old Country, if you ask me, has wait for sale written all over it based on public reception alone. And I wager that many Gen Zers probably didn't even buy that game either. It could be a whole slew of economic factors as to why that is happening too. For starters, I think one of the major reasons is because the game industry kind of just screwed itself over, if I'm being honest. I mean, think about it. Free-to-play games pretty much originated during the lifespan of these Gen Z kids. This is the generation that grew up with Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty Warzone, that's just to name a few. And all of these games have free-to-play versions that allow these much younger players to play with their friends socially. And I guess if you raise an entire generation on the concept of free-to-play as a model, the idea of them now having to suddenly pay $60 to $80 for one new game is going to backfire greatly. Because why pay $80 for some new game when you can just play Warzone or Fortnite for free? Sure, even if you buy a skin, it'll be what, maybe $15 to $20, but it's still cheaper than forking over all that cash for a brand new game. And this mentality that was baked into these kids' brains from inception, which has both backfired and helped the industry in different ways. As Sky News reported here back in November 2024, Gen Z is now accustomed to what are called forever games. They mean live service. And Gen Z is one of the biggest supporters of this version of games when it comes to how they consume media. As media research states here in 2024, 67% of all profits came from in-game purchases like microtransactions and then some. And if you want raw numbers in terms of 2024 profits, microtransactions made about $94 billion, while actual full game sales made just $29 billion in comparison. Here's another handy graph to better display what I'm saying, but as you can see, these forever live service games are making more money than your mafia old countries pretty much every day of the week now. But because of this shift, which has gotten worse in 2025, as I said earlier, with that 25% less actual game sales now, this trend will just continue. It's around 52% of all sales from PC and console games alone that are coming from these in-app purchases. So of course, these younger people aren't going to buy your games for the full price, because why would they pay $80 if they can just buy a $10 battle pass and play their Fortnite or COD or Marvel Rivals instead? And let's be real, they're probably going to get more hours of content out of that than buying a new single-player game instead. Well, mostly anyways. As for reasons to play, that same research firm did a survey with people ages 16 to 30 versus those 51 and over. And as you can see, younger people mostly play games to socialize with friends, make new friends, or compete in games like COD or Fortnite because, they're competitive. As older players play to be alone and be secluded. I mean, I'm 32 years old, but honestly, it seems like I have the playing habits of a 51-plus-year-old person. Doesn't really surprise me much, but it is what it is. Then you got people like David Fifield. He's a manager of a game called Hunt Showdown, which is another live service game, and he said it makes more sense to cultivate your community of players than make a new game entirely. He likens it to kicking people out of a concert only to make them pay again to come into that same concert. Hence why these forever games are continuing on forever pretty much. It still doesn't fix the fact that younger generations are just not buying games at the same rate anymore. But when you tie it into economic factors, it does make sense. A $10 battle pass is a far easier purchase to make than debating if you can or even want to spend the $70 or $80 on a new game that you may or may not even like. Many people watching definitely don't buy games new. I mean, most of you probably just wait a year or two and then buy the games on the cheap. And I mean, no one can really blame you because everything is so expensive these days. And before I continue, consider liking the video, subscribing, leaving a comment. It helps like crazy. Thank you. But for example, I had to recently buy dog food for my dogs, like both the wet food and the dry kibble. It cost me $400 for 3 cases of wet food and a big bag of kibble for my dogs. I mean, I spent at least $400 on average at the beginning of every month just buying food for the house. And then anytime my girlfriend wants to go out, there goes money too. It's why I tell my girlfriend I'm at my happiest when I'm on the couch, controller in hand with a nice cup of coffee. Because it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg to just sit there and enjoy a video game. Frankly, in my opinion, I justify buying video games because when I buy a new game, it honestly saves me money in the long run. Because it means that I'm too occupied to now leave the house where I'll just end up spending more money probably. Like, dude, every cocktail at a restaurant now is like $12 to $15 a pop. A basic burger and fries is at least $15 and up now. Every shot of alcohol you buy at a club is going to be like $6.50, $7 or more. Make it a double and it's like $9 now. Music tickets are also easily in the high amount of monies, in the hundreds and stuff. I mean, your phone bill has a monthly plan too that you got to pay for. Not to mention you got to pay to live somewhere. Taxes are awful no matter where you live. I mean, it keeps going. Thankfully, I'm okay money-wise. I can afford video games if I want to, but if you're working minimum wage, of course you're not going to go out all the time or buy the latest video games, and that's hurting game sales, but it honestly can't be undone. Because everything is so expensive these days, man. And don't get me started on going on a trip. Jesus, that's just more money spent too. Like if I wasn't doing YouTube, I wouldn't be buying new games very often either. But again, it's eating away at the profitability of single-player games. And it's pushing more developers to work on live service games only because the publishers want more of that money too. There was another developer who was interviewed here who worked on Battlefield and Mass Effect, and they said this: as a game developer, as somebody who's going to invest millions of dollars on making a game, all the incentives are there for you to try to extend that gameplay and really create more community around it. They continue. When you make a free-to-play game, every single second that the player is in the game is being geared towards retention and or monetization. The whole design is around those mechanics, and as they say at the bottom, making a good game just isn't really enough anymore. And as Matt Piscatella said here on Blue Sky, many players are just not buying full price anymore, and they are just instead playing free-to-play on devices that they likely already own. It's very challenging now to convince people to play your game if it has a hefty price tag on it. Sure, okay, stuff like Battlefield 6 will probably buck this trend, but you would then be comparing a massive game like that? When in reality, let's be real, most games can't even hope to compete with a franchise like Battlefield or Call of Duty when those come out to being bought day one or not. So the reality is that most smaller games just get lost in the shuffle, and when you add a price tag to your game, it's usually even worse. But as MIDI Research, which led this study, says here, today if you want to grow time spent as a game, you basically need to dethrone time that's already allocated to another app. And that is true. I mean, I've spoken to devs on Discord and more from time to time, and from what I'm told, the industry has already accepted that the actual amount of new players has plateaued years ago. And now, instead of catering to a new crowd, all of these games and companies and then some are just fighting over the people that exist now and for their attention. Call of Duty wants the Fortnite players, Battlefield wants the PUBG and COD players, and so on and so forth. So realistically, there's only so many players you can cater to, and with all of them already devoted to like one game or a platform, it's gonna be next to impossible to make them move onto something else because everyone is stubborn, and honestly, it makes sense. If you've already spent tons of money buying skins in Fortnite, why would you go play a new live service game now? You can't use those skins in Fortnite there, so why bother? It's like everyone has dug their own little hole in the beach or made their own little house, and then you're asking them now to leave their house for another new house, but they also can't take anything with them, you know? It's like borderline impossible now. And with Gen Z doing what they're doing and caring more about life experiences like traveling around or hanging out with their friends, I mean, who can blame them? Video games just aren't as important to them. I have Gen Z family members myself. I mean, they barely go outside. It's because things are just too expensive, and when you factor in taxes on everything and more, they'd all just rather stay inside, be on Discord with their friends, and do whatever they can with what they got in front of them than fork over all this money for another game or experience or whatever else. And I'll get back to Gen Z in a second, but it also doesn't help that places like Steam have been getting eviscerated and just making the whole process of buying games even more difficult than it already has. As seen here from GameDeveloper.com, Valve says that PayPal support is no longer available in some regions due to content concerns. In this case, one of PayPal's acquiring banks decided to stop processing any Steam transactions. Honestly, at this point, it just seems like there's a massive attack that's being coordinated to just flat out destroy Steam by any means necessary now. Like, what even is happening? Steam did respond to this where they said in early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that their acquiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the process of any transactions related to Steam, Valve wrote. And as they say here, this affects Steam purchases using PayPal, hence folks in nations that don't use euros, pounds, yens, or dollars of the Canadian, American, Australian variety, being unable to buy Steam's wares via PayPal. This isn't the first time. We know the MasterCard and Visa have done the same thing, but it's getting really, really weird if you ask me honestly. It's as if everyone is just trying to make Steam crumble from within or something. Valve did have more to say. We hope to offer PayPal as an option for these currencies in the future, but the timeline is uncertain, Valve wrote. We are also evaluating adding additional payment methods on Steam, yada yada yada, but in the meantime, use these other ones. Again, this just comes off as shady at this point. Not Valve, I mean, but the banks and card processors is what I mean. It's as if they're all just trying to suffocate everything. The reason why this is happening is because of not safe for work content. It ties into the whole internet censorship debacle and how pretty much everything is getting censored for pushing anything remotely risque or not being made for kids. I mean, YouTube even recently has added age verification to their platform too. So hopefully, you don't like watching anything with nostalgia in it because they might cook you for that too. So, as if these younger people, coming back to that now obviously, not buying games was bad enough, you got these companies now flat out stopping them and censoring them from buying things as well too. So how does this end up working in the favor of anybody? It really doesn't, as Vice continues here about younger people not buying literally anything these days. Young consumers are expected to spend heavily in the entertainment sector, given college students and recent grads traditionally have low financial responsibilities. But if Gen Z's young adults can't spend on gaming, that isn't a promising sign for the industry's future. 18 to 24-year-olds who are strapped for cash today may be strapped for cash tomorrow. If so, the wealth gap between Zoomers and Millennials could simply increase over time, and as some Millennials cut back on gaming to fund life responsibilities, like family care or repairing a house, Zoomers might not be able to replenish the lost income left behind from the youngest Millennial consumers. Meaning in total, if you're a game company that makes video games, you're probably crapping your pantaloons right now knowing that your future customers don't really want to buy games as often as your other ones do. And it's not necessarily because they don't want to, but simply because it's far too expensive to buy them in general amidst everything else and the censorship too, of course. And also because the games they grew up with costed, quite literally, nothing to play to begin with, so that's what they're accustomed to now. As this report here from Sky News states, around 48% of new studios founded between 2008 to 2018 failed and closed down before their 5th year of operation. Because of this, studios and publishers have obviously become risk averse to anything that could spell financial oblivion for them. The way the world is changing has even made things like concerts go digital too. As seen here from Sky News again, games have even begun hosting entire digital concerts like in Fortnite to promote artists and engage players that way. And what you can do in Fortnite now, as you're seeing on screen here, is something that we honestly never once thought possible. Like, this looks like the Matrix to me. As seen here from Forbes, that digital concert that Fortnite held, it attracted over 14 million plus players all at once enjoying that concert live. And that's obviously way more people than any actual concert in real life could realistically have the capacity to perform for. But again, it garnered so many players to engage with the concert because it was free and it was digital, things that Gen Z and so on are really used to at this point. And I can already hear the older viewers saying this digital concert does not beat seeing that band or artist live, which I agree with you, but to these younger kids, if they can hear the songs and be a part of something for free from the comfort of their bedrooms, it's always going to beat out going, spending money on a ticket. Then they gotta buy food and drinks that are usually always overpriced when you go out, and then having to stand there physically waiting for the thing to start. So the reality that we have to come to terms with here is that video games are changing, both for the better and honestly for the worse too. Everything is becoming more risk averse and demanding your attention for the lowest amount possible. But in the long run, this won't create more unforgettable games either, in my opinion anyways. Instead, it will just replace what could have been legendary new game experiences with these safe, tailored for modern audience content instead that's happening. And the sad reality is that when you have entire generations raised on what is basically NPC-like content, they likely won't notice the difference either way. The whole PayPal thing just confuses stuff more too, but with the rise of censorship both in real life and digitally, frankly, I don't know if I see things changing anytime soon. Because this NPC-like behavior of people is really real these days, mostly just kind of accepting whatever they're told or given pretty much, which is terrible to see. For me anyways, the path games are kind of going down is not really one I enjoy. I care not for more live service games. I just want to play a game by myself that's fun and gives me escapism. I'm also tired of games that are nickel and diming my every experience if I want to play them. Marvel Rivals, for example, has new skin bundles every week, so too does Fortnite and others. There's no way to reasonably be able to play all of these live service games equally. Unless you just decide that you never want a family, a partner, or anything else pretty much, I guess you could unlock all that content until you, wither away, I don't know. But my question then is it really worth it when it comes to live service then? Because I find most of them to be pointless to play. But maybe that's just me being an old man yelling at the cloud because, yeah, they are very popular amongst the younger kids. But again, I was born in the 90s. I grew up with the dial-up internet, having to physically watch TV when Dragon Ball would air, and I didn't have a cell phone until well into my teenage years. So it just feels like what I truly care about in video games and content is not necessarily what these younger kids do. But then again, everything is tied to trends. Things are bound to rubber band in the other direction before long, as media's research ends their report with. They theorize that the biggest battle in the future will be between social media and video games over which one completely consumes younger people's minds going forward. And based on what I've shown in this video, my guess is that social media will win in the end. Maybe that's just another reasoning for the censoring by PayPal and more of big game platforms. Because if games get censored, people won't play as much, but they will just replace that time with social media, and what better way to control people and how they think than through targeted information attacks and made by committee, totally not fake at all viral moments instead. This won't fix everything. All it would really do is turn a populace that it's already confused, destabilized, and resentful of their unfortunate circumstances to become more secluded from one another, which is not a good thing. My hope is that social media doesn't really win, because frankly, most of social media really isn't about bringing people together, as it's more so just people fighting each other for clout or followers. Honestly, most interactions online, it feels like you're playing chess if I'm being real with you. It's not the only site, by the way, saying this either. Here's TechSpot. Young kids like live service, older people like single-player games. It's just kind of backwards. Although, I don't want to leave you in doom and gloom either, because that would be sad to do. So as seen here again from media research, overall across all generations of people alive right now on this godforsaken planet, single-player games are still the most dominant and requested kind of experience for players. Sure, Gen Zers want their Fortnites, but the rest of us clearly do not. Still, 53% is pretty close to teetering into the other side, I'll be real, but hey, it's still a win. And single-player games will not disappear. There is clearly still a market for them, at least as long as I'm alive anyways. And according to media, a big reason why single player games hold onto relevancy longer is because the live service market is way too oversaturated, there's just too much of it. And it eventually becomes digital noise, I guess, for the average player. What I hope, especially for my younger viewers, is that you guys go seek out more single player games in the future, because there's so many great single player games that you can go play and get for cheap right now that will stay with you as both memories and good lessons over just playing more Fortnite or COD, believe me. Single player games are always going to be the greatest form of entertainment our world can offer, in my opinion, besides petting dogs, of course. But nothing really beats sitting down and playing a wonderful single player game and enjoying its world and its characters and its story. I guess I'm glad I was born in the 90s because I got the best of all worlds. Imagine not growing up with stuff like Legend of Dragoon or shows like Dragon Ball when they first aired in North America. I can't even imagine that, man. So while yes, there is Doom, I want you all to know that single player games will not vanish overnight. What you love is still being made, and I hope this video has convinced some of you to maybe get off that hamster wheel of live service and maybe just slow down for a second, Play a single player game and just take your time, enjoy it. I promise you, you will love it. Look, the world may be changing in ways, but there's a reason why the past always tends to become trendy again, because the old ways are still the best ways. So please, go enjoy a single player game today, and I hope you all have lots of fun doing so, but thank you for watching, subscribe to keep up to date. Let me know what you think in the comments as always, and I'll see you guys next time. God, I love Legend of Dragoon.